Me and Deanna have been blessed with wonderful material things because of what I've done. But we tried to stay extremely grounded.
Are the walls closing in on Brett Favre?
NFL Hall of Famer Brett Favre is facing questions tonight of whether he knowingly took $5 million of state welfare money to build a new volleyball facility for his daughter's team 5 years ago at her university and his alma mater.
So I encourage you to stay positive, keep the faith, and believe that better days are ahead.
As many know, his name has been floated as playing a role in the Mississippi welfare scandal, something he denies.
Brett Favre asked the head of a nonprofit handling welfare funds, quote, "If you were to pay me, is there any way that the media could find out where it came from and how much?"
Last year, middle of last year, my office, which includes 135 CPAs, investigators, and attorneys, we got a tip in that suggested that the director of the Department of Human Services was misdirecting money and potentially involved in an embezzlement scheme.
Suit was brought by the Mississippi Department of Human Services in May in an attempt to recover millions in misspent money. Favre also seemingly pushed to build an indoor practice facility to lure recruits like Deion Sanders' son Shador, and for funding for a pharmaceutical company he is an investor in.
Things will get better. It shall pass.
The funding in question from a grant program intended for low-income families. The governor responded to Favre's request. Use of these funds is tightly controlled. Any improper use could result in violation of federal law.
The most recent update for Favre could spell trouble, but that's where we introduce this guy.
But the key to the drug really is it works sort of like 3 different drugs in one, because this drug diffuses into your brain cells. And those brain cells are, very stressed out after the concussion.
Jacob Vanlandingham, a neuroscientist Brett Favre started the company Prevacus with. The long and short on Prevacus?
The brain is the most complex part of the human body. Prevacus has designed a nasal therapeutic which easily crosses into the brain.
This was an official ad they ran. To say they put on a full court press of media is a severe understatement. Here they are on Fox Business. Vanlandingham went on independent media as well to promote it. They had Super Bowl winning quarterback and NFL Hall of Famer Terry Bradshaw introducing Prevacus, and even Vanlandingham in a spot. A big break came on the Today Show with Vanlandingham, Favre, and big-time athletes like Abby Wambach, Kurt Warner, and David Ross. Tallahassee.com has more. Prevacus was pitched as a treatment for concussions to be taken nasally. He'd say they received large funding at the local level, plus what was labeled national sources. Via ABC News, 2 of Vanlandingham's Florida-based companies, Prevacus and Presol MD, are alleged to have received more than $2.1 million in Mississippi funds that were earmarked for welfare families, according to a civil suit filed by the state. Then from Mississippi Today, Governor Phil Bryant, helped the company find investors, make political connections, and even agreed to accept stock in Prevacus in January of 2020. And that is what they reported on their series, The Back Channel. In November of 2020, the outlet reported former nonprofit director Nancy New, who had already pled guilty to fraud in the $77 million scheme, was, per prosecutors, found to be committing a crime when they sent more than $2 million to Prevacus and Presol MD. Those companies, state leaders believe, were trying to be lured to the state of Mississippi for business. ESPN would uncover Vanlandingham faced substantial debts over the past several years, even as he was pressing potential investors to help his drugs to market. The outlet also wrote of a meeting in January 2019, which Favre hosted, that included New and 3 people who would later go on to be charged and pled guilty in the welfare fraud case. It was a get-together to hear a business proposition from Jacob Vanlandingham.
In May of 2020, he came out with a report that said that Brett Favre himself had received $1 million in welfare payments to basically under a promotional gig to promote the welfare program. Okay, so all of that came out in 2020. Not a lot of fanfare, not a lot of national coverage, right? Fast forward to this year, and we are learning there's been sort of a trickle of information, but we're learning more and more here recently through text messages both that I obtained and that have been entered into a court filing, that show kind of how Favre was discussing these deals with welfare officials. So, he was aware that this money was coming from the Department of Human Services. He was working with John Davis on pulling down this money, and the way that he spoke about it was really like, I'm trying to save myself some money here. Can y'all please help me out?
Fast forward to present day.
And Jacob Vanlandingham, the founder of drug company Prevacus, pleaded guilty to a single count of wire fraud, a charge that can bring a prison sentence of up to 20 years. The largest investor in Prevacus is Hall of Fame quarterback Brett Favre, who is facing legal challenges from multiple sides. Prevacus illegally received $2 million in federal welfare funds.
You heard correctly. Jacob Vanlandingham pled guilty to wire fraud in federal court. Per ESPN, the worldwide leader, Vanlandingham admitted he used Mississippi welfare money that his company received for concussion research to pay off gambling and other debts, per court filings.
Well, this is the first one kind of at Favre's level, or kind of wasn't above this chain. It was kind of right there alongside of him as they were kind of trying to get more funding. Favre, again, has not been charged criminally, and he has denied wrongdoing. And while I have a quote in my story from a lawyer saying that what it could mean for Favre, we still don't know whether he will be indicted.
To be very clear, from Anna Wolf of Mississippi Today, acquiring the funds was not the crime. He pleaded guilty to using some of the funds for himself. More from Wolf. Vanlandingham pleaded guilty to a bill of information, a charging document the government uses when a defendant agrees to waive a formal indictment. The charge relates to a $400,000 wire transfer from the Mississippi Community Education Center to Prevacus in July of 2019, about a month after the state auditor, Shad White's investigation, would begin. He faces 20 years in prison and a fine of $250,000. He is yet to be sentenced because at this moment he is cooperating with the authorities. Thus far, 8 people have been indicted, 6 of whom have pled guilty for their involvement, including Mississippi's former welfare director and the head of a nonprofit organization. As more transpires, we will bring it to you as those updates come in. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports, or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.